All right, guys. So today is kind of informal. We're going to be talking about how to get a job, and we're going to break it down to some practical application that hopefully can be used longer than just today because of the power of technology and recording and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, let's go ahead and let's hop into this thing. So first thing you have to do when you get a job, you need to start out 6 months, 4 to 6 months ahead of time. Don't be graduating and then going and trying to find a job after you graduated, because number one, you're going to be behind the 8 ball. All right, people aren't going to be. You're going to be rushing. You're going to be cramming. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be smooth. And secondly, no one cares if you've actually got your degree at the time you're interviewing. If you can tell them within 6 months you're going to have a degree in your hand, they're more than willing to take you on, interview you, waste money on you, do whatever they have to do with you. All right, so when we've decided that we're going to start on the job search, the first thing we've got to do is we've got to create a couple of accounts online. Gmail, you're going to make a new email. Why do we need to do this? Because you're going to get filled with like spam and recruiter requests and all this other kind of junk. You don't want that clogging up your personal inbox. You don't want that clogging up any other inboxes you find important. So in order to centralize all that information in one location, we're going to create that in a new drive. Make it professional. Mine is like contact.samuelhowell@gmail.com. It's a great standard to follow. Also, when you create this new Gmail, you're going to have access to 15 gigs on a Google Drive. You want to go ahead, upload your resume to that drive, upload your cover letter. We're going to talk about those in a minute. Also, upload a folder for interview prep, and we're going to get into all of that. Once again, we want all this information to be centralized in one location, and we don't want spam job postings in our other inboxes. So, once we've created the new Gmail, we've got the drive set up, it's time to polish up the resume. The two big things here that are really important on your resume: previous work experience and personal projects. No one gives a crap about your GPA. No one gives a crap about what kind of courses you took in school. They just need to see that you have a computer science degree and that you have some experience, whether in the work or in the projects. All right, so we're going to do a minimum of 2 bullet points each on those projects. If you have less projects, more bullet points. Obviously, it's important to use a lot of numbers. Our brains are attracted to numbers. Numbers make things look bigger and better. We're going to see an example of that in a second. But it's important that you utilize numbers on your resume. Also, keywords. All right, the agency is called ATS. It's basically these systems that recruiters use to quickly scan through resumes. And if your resume doesn't have specific keywords on it, you get booted off the pile before a physical person even looks at your resume. So it's important that if you're applying for a job, say as a Java developer, that you're going to load up your resume with Java keywords, whether that's object-oriented programming or inheritance or polymorphism or Java 8, whatever the case may be, right? You load it up with those keywords. Also, your skills section should include soft skills. This is not something that's talked about a lot, but it's kind of important. It brings up a lot of good conversation starters when you're talking through those initial talks with recruiters, supervisors, interviewers. Include soft skills on your skills section. I think mine has like communication and leadership and all this other junk. But the whole point of that is it shows that you're multifaceted. It shows that you're not purely a technical person, but that you also, are human as well. And lastly, you want to link your GitHub and your LinkedIn directly to your resume profile. So if they want to see examples of your code, they can go immediately to that. If they want to see examples of your academic achievement, they can go over to your LinkedIn. In this process, if you're going through this, you find out that you're running out of space, you don't have enough space, it's important that you got to get rid of your coursework. Coursework is not a big thing. I was not asked a single time about any of my coursework. They just want to know that I had a computer science degree. They don't care that you know calculus or not. That's not important. They just need to see that you have the work ethic to go and get a degree. So we have 2 examples here. It's going to look really blurry on the video, maybe not the high quality video, but definitely on the stream video, of a bad resume and a good resume. This bad resume was my resume up until 6 months ago, and then I started using this new one, and this is where I locked down my job, using this one. So just pointing out some differences here. You see my skills section is super small. I got Java, Python, HTML, CSS, PHP, MySQL, UML documentation. That's all I got. Over here, I've loaded it up. I've got communication, collaboration, mentoring, computer science, that's one of my skills, software engineering, troubleshooting, customer service, Excel, problem solving, technical writing, time management, right? You load it down with all these cool keywords and stuff. They love that junk. Next, we're going to go over to our experience section. Notice here I've got 3 experience things, but we're not doing too good on the bullet points. And we're also, I don't see any numbers anywhere here. All right, and competitive programming team member is not really experienced, but it looked really good at the time because I didn't have anything else. All right, but notice when we went over to the new one, I scratched that. I added more bullet points and more detail into what the rest of the stuff I had here. All right, so I went from assisted customers and troubleshooting phones and computers to assisted 10 plus daily customers and troubleshooting phones and computers. All right, it just sounds better. It just sounds more legit. But most importantly, we got this project section. All right, and this is where the meat and potatoes of your resume needs to be, is in your project section. Over here, notice I didn't really have any projects. I had this accounting system web application we did in one of the classes. Was that CS 313 or something? I don't remember. And then I had a word processor program which I threw together in like a single afternoon. So nothing really there. But I made up for it with this award section, which also no one cares about. So if you're listing your awards on your resume, that's wasted space. Get rid of it. Add more skills. Add more job experience. Add more projects. So over here on the new projects, notice I put my capstone. So the inventory management application. I use a lot of keywords. We see full stack, cross-platform, product logistics, entrepreneurs. I also put a link to my GitHub directly in there, so they can see, I actually had a couple recruiters go and look at the project beforehand. On that project, there's a detailed README file. This actually links to the README file, so they can get a quick overview of the project, complete with screenshots, primary, functions and database methods, all that kind of stuff is right there for them to look at, peruse, and view. We also have more framework, right? More keywords here. Dart, Flutter, Firebase real-time database. More numbers, 30 plus custom database methods, 25 plus packages. You just make it sound smart, right? We got this whole thing about quantity chart generation, app theming. I was messing with storage permissions. I was debugging. I was using Figma. And these are things that people, this is really hot in the industry right now. So it's important that you when you're building your projects, you're focusing on things that are current in industry. You go to school to get all the junk that no one learns anymore, like operating systems and data structures and algorithms and you can use
computer architecture.
Yeah, architecture. Like no one, get out of here, right? What's important is that you know GitHub, Flutter, C#, .NET, Material UI, Figma, things like that. That's what matters. And I can take that to the bank. I'm not a professor, so I don't have to lie to you. All right, so next thing we're going to go to is we got our cover letter. All right, why do you need a cover letter? It's important because we got some automated screening softwares, those ATS softwares I was talking about a minute ago. They will drop your application if you do not include a cover letter. Now, this isn't a one and done deal. Some ATS do this, some do not. But just its rule of thumb is, if you see a option to add a cover letter, it's best to just go ahead and do it. Like Sam, that's so much work. I have to write out this letter every single time and sign it. And no, you don't. All you got to do is make a reusable cover letter. So right here I got one. You see I've highlighted the important points that I would change. I keep my address the same, the phone number stays the same. LinkedIn, Gmail, GitHub stay the same. I just changed the job title. I changed the company name. And I changed, your graduation date. Mine was December 2022, but you can just fill that out. So basically what you do is you're going to, this first little paragraph, I'm ready to apply for the blank position. I'm currently a senior studying computer science at Francis Marion University, located in Florence, South Carolina. So you get your location there. I'll be graduating in December 2022, May 2023, whatever. I am seeking to expand upon the knowledge I have gained in my coursework and apply it to real-world scenarios in a full-time technology role. Once again, we're sounding intelligent, we're sounding smart. All right? Next thing you got to focus on, you're a hard worker. You have a desire and a passion to learn. Hence, I can assure you that I'm a hard worker who strives to learn and excel with new challenges and opportunities. I am proficient in, I should say in, I didn't do that, wow. I'm proficient in multiple coding languages and I understand data structure, Scrum, software design principles and methodologies, and development cycles. I also have experience in full stack cross-platform app development, having coded an inventory management app using the Flutter framework for my senior capstone project.
You're saying that they can't understand it. Can you mute your microphone? I'm going to do it on my phone.
So what?
talking to Roland. Roland, can you mute that microphone?
Snazzy, snazzy.
Sure, yeah.
Continue? What? We're
Yeah.
good? Straight.
Did you mute it, Roland?
Yeah.
All right.
My audio tech guys are giving me the hold up. Oh, got the thumbs up. All right, we're back. So notice here, we make a claim, right? I can assure you I'm a hard worker who strives to learn and excel in new challenges and opportunities. Anybody can make the claim. The question is, can you back it up? All right, you got to be able to back your junk up. So what I did was, I have experience with full-stack cross-platform app development, having coded an inventory management app. So this is going to look different for you, obviously, but you got to make sure, even in your cover letter, that not only are you showing that you have a desire to put the work forward, that you have a desire to learn, but that you have demonstrated experience of doing so. That's important for recruiters to see. We'll talk more about that later. Lastly, you want to hobnob a little bit. You want to talk about the company, pretend you went and looked it up. Literally Google the company, copy the Wikipedia thing, and just kind of go off that. Say, I'm specifically interested in this position because I enjoy challenge. I want to be part of a company whose job it is to enrich others. We're intentionally staying vague. We're intentionally sounding like we're an HR person because we want them to like us. All right? You're going to find out what company sector they're in. So mine would have been steel manufacturing. So you're going to say steel manufacturing is essential in our world, and Nucor is fulfilling that need. Right? You just fill in the blank. And then you say something about, if given the opportunity, I would hope to be able to utilize the skills and knowledge I've gained in my CS coursework, apply them to a job that matters, and begin a fruitful and fulfilling career. All right? That's the gist of it right there. It sounds smart, it sounds eloquent, it sounds professional. It also keeps you from getting knocked out by these screening softwares. So you make that reusable cover letter. What's next? We got to create an interview prep document. So if you remember back when we were looking at the different things we were going to set up in our Google Drive, we mentioned that we had to have an interview prep folder. There's going to be 2 documents in this folder. The first one is going to be for soft skills. The second one is going to be for technical skills. So what are you going to do with your soft skills interview prep document? You're going to open up Google Doc, Microsoft Word, whatever. You're going to go and you're going to Google generic HR interview questions. All right? You know you're on the right page when you see questions like tell me about yourself, or give an example of a time you resolved a conflict, or what's your biggest strength or weakness, things like that. All right? You're going to copy those down, and then you need to write out your answers on the document to the questions. You're like, that's a bunch of extra work. That sounds boring. It's stupid. It's all of the above, but it's also preparing you for when you have to speak it to an interviewer. Okay, studies have shown writing things out, processing things beforehand in written word helps you memorize things. It helps you digest things. So when you're putting out these answers, you need to write them out. You need to follow the BBBB principle, which is be brief but brilliant in all your questions. You don't need to hem and haw around the point. You need to get straight to the point. If they say give an example of a time you resolved a conflict, don't give them your life story leading up to the conflict. Just give them the conflict and how you resolved it. Make sure in all of these questions, and this is another good thing about writing it out, you can kind of craft the narrative a little bit. You can flesh out the story. You can build it up a little bit. Make sure you make yourself out to be a team leader. You always want to be a team leader. You want to show that you work well with others, and you have the initiative to make decisions and weigh options on your own. So there's a big difference between being a team player and a team leader. What we got going on, boys? You good? Everything great?
The text is backwards now, apparently, even though it's not backwards.
RIP that. It's all right. We got audio though?
Yeah, we got audio, and they said it's good audio now.
Solid stuff, man. All right, so you want to show you work well with others, and you have the initiative to make decisions and weigh options on your own. A lot of people are going to tell you you need to be a team player. That's bull crap. You don't need to be a team player. You need to be a team leader. All right? You need to show that you have the ability to work in a team, but also what employers want to see is that you have initiative. You need to have some form of initiative. You need to be able to take control. Not necessarily mean you have to go in there and dominate the conversation, dominate the situation, but you need to show that you have some strong-willedness about you to go and make decisions. Employers don't want to micromanage their employees. They want you to be able to operate on your own. So when you're answering these questions, make sure to pick out examples where you shine in leadership. Maybe you're working on a project and you set up a Trello board and help keep your team members on task. Maybe you completed X number of database methods on a project by yourself. I don't know. Just make it out to show that you are the leader. All right? Maybe you helped a fellow student in something that was going on. during the project. They love this stuff. They eat it up. And then lastly, we're going to place this file in your interview prep folder. Once you've got that one, 10, 12 questions, just hit the high points, hit the highlights. We're going to go over to our technical skills interviews prep document. It's similar but different. So for this one, we're going to be doing generic questions that technical interviewers ask. You got to make sure to specifically Google technical interview questions. So examples of this, you know you're on the right website page when you see questions about encapsulation, polymorphism, inheritance, abstraction. If they ask you to define what object-oriented programming is, or what's the difference between compile time and runtime. My favorite one, how do you instantiate an interface in C++? I need everybody to look that up and give me an answer on that one. Does anybody know off the top of their head how you do that?
Do you?
That's always a question asked. Austin brings up a great point. This does not exist. This does not exist. You cannot have interfaces in C++. You say, Sam, why does this matter? Because they will ask you junk like this, and then they're going to know if you're faking and lying to them. So you got to make sure that you know your stuff. All right? If you don't know the answer to a question on the technical, say you don't know. Because if you lie to them, that's a bad taste in their mouth. I got hit with this question. I said I didn't know. Someone else said they did know. Guess who kept on going in the interview process? The one who wasn't a liar. All right? So we got to make sure we're staying on top of that. Similar thing. Write out your answers. Be brief but brilliant. Other things to add, maybe look at some popular search and sort algorithms. All right? Kind of know how a merge sort versus a bubble sort versus a binary search tree sort, or all those kinds of things. Is that a sort? Binary search tree sort?
Binary.
Or maybe that's something different.
I mean, technically. In a way.
Yeah, so that's all about the same thing. Listen to find the different levels of normalization of database tables. All right, so know the difference between 1NF, 2NF, 3NF. Popular SQL query statements. These are all good things to touch on, kind of will round yourself out. And then you have that, place that file also in your interview prep folder. Make it a point to review these maybe once or twice a week. As you're going through the interview process, stay fresh on them. This is really important. This thing is a literal godsend. All right, you're going to go on Chrome, the App Store, Web Store, Extension Store, whatever it's called, and we're going to download this thing called Simplify. All right, so what does Simplify do? Well, at this point, you've got a good cover letter put together. You've got a good resume put together. This app allows you to load that resume, load that cover letter into its interface, and then it's going to automatically fill out all of your job applications. So what happens is you go on Google, you Google, junior developer jobs, you go hit apply, it's going to take you to a site. All right, and usually the site is going to be something with Workday in it, or ADP, or Ceridian, or Greenhouse, or Oracle. We don't really know these companies. These are like the back-end forms that that companies use to like filter through job applications. And what this extension does is it'll autofill those forms, so you don't have to, upload your resume manually, and you don't have to upload, enter in the dates that you worked certain internships over and over and over again. It gets taxing, time-consuming, it's boring, it's aggravating. So we skip all of that by just directly using this thing. You go to the site, it'll say you want autofill, you click yes, it fills out everything, you double check it, and you move on to the next application. It's a beautiful thing. Use it. Now we apply. All right, so at this point you've got your resume, you've got your cover letter, you've got both of your interview prep sheets. There's really nothing else to do. You've got your extension loaded up. Now you just start throwing yourself out into the ether, putting your resume out there as much as possible. So there's a couple different approaches you can take with this. Obviously the easiest one, straight off the jump, is we're going to just Google associate developer or junior developer positions on Google. You want to look for things that have recently opened up. Don't be applying to something that's been open 6 months, because probably the likelihood is it's not really open anymore and they just forgot to take the listing down, so you're wasting your time. Use Indeed. Indeed's really good. LinkedIn is really good. Don't only do the quick apply stuff. All right, take the time to go through and actually fill out some of the resumes that are on company sites. Now that you've got the Simplify extension, you're still going to do it quicker than most people will, but a bunch of people apply to quick apply jobs. Not as many will apply to jobs where they actually have to type things in. So take advantage of their laziness. Use it to get ahead. Lastly, list companies you'd like to work for. All right, so let's say you want to stay in Florence. You're going to list top companies in Florence, and then you're just going to Google their name with the careers behind it. It'll take you to their career pages. You can see they have IT positions, software development positions, etc., etc. What's important to note when you're applying for jobs If you meet 35% of the qualifications, that means if you have 35% of an idea of what actually is going on, apply for the job. All right. Most of these things are form letters anyway. My supervisor told me, as a matter of fact, they put a bunch of stuff on their applications because they want to hit a wide range of people. They want to rank higher in the SEO for these different websites. So just because you don't know everything on the job description doesn't mean you can't do the job. They want employees who are teachable. They want employees who have initiative and drive. We'll touch on that more later. But don't let, I don't know what, .NET framework this is stop you from applying for a .NET developer position, because C# is basically the same thing as Java with just a couple different flares. So just an example of that, apply. All right, next, this just helps me out. It may help you out. Create a spreadsheet of all active applications. So what happens is you're going to go to these different job sites. They're going to require you to create accounts to check on your application status. Now, we all know we're not going to go back and remember 50 million passwords to 50 million different job sites that we're never going to check again. So it's important you just take a Google Sheet, you take a Microsoft Excel sheet, you got your job title, you got your company, your username, password, and the application portal link. Just load them all in there. Why is this important? When you get a call back, when you get an email, you're going to quickly navigate to the description of the job position in question. So this means you actually look like you know what you're talking about. I had a couple people call me about jobs I applied for weeks ago and completely forgot about, and I was scrambling last minute to go try to find the posting on Indeed or on LinkedIn so I could read the job description again. If I had been using this the whole time, that wouldn't have been an issue. I would have just found the company name, the job I applied for, and I would have all that information right there. So that's important in order to stay on top of things. Utilize spreadsheets. They're beautiful. So with that being said, we get to the actual interview process. So there were two companies that I really was going back and forth between. One was Endava. It was a software consultancy firm out of Charlotte. I ended up getting an offer with them, a remote job at $72,000 a year, I think. Decided not to take it because I wanted to work at Nucor instead. Now the Endava interview process, just to touch briefly on that, it was a Microsoft Teams meeting followed by a take-home coding assignment where we had to implement, what were those things called? Like some kind of webhooks or something. No, endpoints. We had to put new endpoints onto a Spring Boot application, API thingy-majigger. So I kind of taught all myself that stuff on the fly and learned it enough to get through the technical code review with the team, and they liked me and said they wanted me. And then, of course, we had this interview process, which was a little bit more involved. So we're going to touch on that, see what we can glean from what went on here. So, round one. I applied on Indeed for a job as an automation engineer at Nucor. A week or two later, the supervisor, he contacted me via phone call, literally just to set up another interview appointment. So it wasn't like we were doing it over the phone. So I just said, hey, my name is Robert Colley. I work at Nucor. I see you have put in an application here. Would you be willing to do a Teams call with me to discuss the opportunity a bit more? Of course, I was like, yeah, let's do it. So we set one up and have it on Microsoft Teams. Obviously, dress professional, right? Have good lighting, have decent audio quality. Make sure you're putting on that professional air, even from day one, round one, interview one. Don't come off as a slob. All right, so this first one was more about generic questions. So these are those get to know you questions that hopefully at this point, when you get to this point, you're already going to have your prep sheet ready for that. So you got your tell me about yourself. What's your greatest strength? He asked me to tell him a time I failed at something. A time do I consider myself more extroverted or introverted? It's good in these kinds of situations to be self-deprecating, poke fun at yourself a little bit. When they ask you what your biggest weakness is, don't tell them I'm lazy and I don't want to do work. Like, let's be honest, no one's going to hire you after that. Your biggest weakness is always going to be you work too hard. That is always going to be your biggest weakness. But you don't couch it like that. Don't say that because that's kind of generic. You got to say something along the lines, it's got to keep it metaphysical. So maybe I have too much passion for a specific area of computer science, and because of that, I sometimes have trouble focusing on other things. Or you can say, I'm one of those people, I see the tree instead of the forest. I have a hard time getting the big picture because I'm so detail oriented, right? Make your weakness look like a strength in a different way, if that makes sense. And there's a whole thing online about how to do that. We're not really going to go into that too much. Just don't come off as a fake. Like, sell it. You got to sell it. Be good and sell it. To tell me about yourself question. Don't just purely do, I'm so-and-so, I go to such and such a college, I'm getting such and such a degree. All right? Be a little bit more open, be a little bit more personable. These are humans too. They like, basic human interaction. They like hearing about human things like family and sports and, outreach and volunteer work. Like, don't just make it all solely about your technical prowess, because that isn't what ends up getting you the job in many situations. Round 2. After we got done with that, I got a call back. He said, yep, like what we saw in round 2, we're going to take you on to see the team for the first time. It's going to be a virtual Microsoft Teams interview with 4 sections in it. So I got on the call, that was about a week after, with a couple of the different engineers on the team. And they took us through four different processes. So first we did our generic coding principles and terminology section. So it was basically just rapid fire questions. What's .NET? What's Blazor? What's MVC architecture? Describe the different things to me. So I had to give them that. They asked me questions, basic questions about access modifiers. What's the difference between private and public? What's internal? Things like that. And of course, OOP, right? That's always going to pop up. You need to know polymorphism. You need to know inheritance. You need to know abstraction, encapsulation. Those will pop up no matter where you go, unless you're just getting an IT job, in which case they won't. But software development, you're going to have to know that stuff. Second section, for this job in particular, automation engineering, we have to do a lot with databases because we're storing a lot of information from our machines. So they wanted me to be able to craft a couple simple statements off the top of my head for different tables. I think the one they wrote was this one. How would you write a join statement between table A and B where the primary key and foreign key respectively is item ID? All right? And then they had a section on database management systems. So they wanted me, once again, to explain the different levels of database normalization. And then lastly, we did a little mini code review. Basically, they gave me a block of C# code. It's like a method or a function or something. And they asked me, what does this do? And it was very generic. I didn't really have an idea. It was the first time seeing it. I didn't know C#. So I was just kind of going off what I knew about Java. And it turned out the code was riddled with errors. They weren't going to tell me that. They wanted me to figure that out and tell them what they all were. During this process, the main interviewer who was doing it, he was very stoic. He was very deadpan. I was trying to crack a joke. He wasn't having any of it. Wouldn't recommend going that route. That's just I get nervous. I crack jokes. That's my thing. But it didn't work there. So he later told me after the fact, a couple interviews later, he was like, I always do that with the first interview with candidates. Because he's a really personable guy. He's funny. He cracks jokes. I went out to eat with him one night. He got rip-roaring drunk. He was hilarious. But he told me, he's like, when I'm in the first interview with candidates, I always keep a straight face. I always keep it locked down. He's like, because when you're in the workforce, you need to understand that you have to be able to work under pressure. And especially working in software, you're dealing with big systems, and there's a lot of implications behind if something goes wrong here. And if you go to a meeting in the morning, you're going to be interacting with people who don't have that technical background. They're going to see something doesn't work, they're going to say it's your fault, and they're going to chew you out in front of everybody. And they're going to be mean, they're going to be nasty. And you got to understand that you have to have a thick skull. Not thick skull, thick skin. Thick skull is someone who's dumb. You don't want to be that. All right? That being said, you have to be on top of things. Don't let it get to you. If you feel like you're getting pressured from one of the guys in the interview process, just let it roll off your back. More likely than not, they're also, while they're interviewing you on these technical things, they're also seeing how you would be a fit with the culture under pressure, et cetera, et cetera. Round 3, I thought for sure I'd bomb round 2. I didn't know half that jump. They told me later, they asked you terminology questions. It really doesn't matter because they just want to make sure you're not going to lie to them. There were many times I said, I don't know the answer to this question. And that was fine because they said in the real world, you can just Google it. It's not that big of a deal. We're software developers. We're not going to lie and act like we know everything. We use Stack Overflow just like everybody else. So we get to round 3, which was an interview with the automation supervisor, the electrical engineer, an electrical engineer, and the mechanical supervisor. The whole point of this interview, I think, was to show how I could explain complex technical topics to people who did not have the same technical foundation as me. All right, so when you're in the workforce, specifically in tech, you're going to be, like I said a minute ago, working with a lot of people who do not have that same background. So you have to know how to explain things to them. You have to know how to communicate with them. And this was a chance for the automation supervisor, who's going to be my boss, to see how I interacted with these two people who were coming from different fields, how I was relaying the information to them. He wanted to know, was I able to bridge the gap and engage properly in that intersectional workplace dialogue? All right, because electrical engineers need automation engineers, and we both need mechanical engineers. But a mechanical engineer isn't going to know what abstraction is. All right, so you have to be able to kind of bridge that gap. Also, in that same vein, am I able to grasp concepts that are outside of my domain of responsibility? All right, so you got to be able to quickly retain information. So if I'm learning about an electrical process because I have to code out a method on one of the machines for it, well, I need to be able to take instruction and guidance from both the electrical engineers and the mechanical supervisors. I have to be able to internalize that information, take it in quickly, spit it back out to them. So that was part of that interview. And that brings us to round 4, which was the final interview. And this was an on-site interview. So basically they paid for my gas, drove me down there, put me up in a hotel. I got up the next morning at like 6 a.m. and got to the plant in time for shift change. I went to like the morning meetings that they did. And then I had another technical interview with the entire automation engineering team. So that was kind of nerve-wracking because it was like this big conference room, and they all sat at the table and I sat at the front. They had like this 85-inch TV at the front hooked up to like, a laptop mirroring the screen. So I was coding and they were watching everything I was doing, right? And it was a C# application. Basically, there were 9 problems. If I remember correctly, 5 were code related, 4 were database query related. So basically, they said, fix it, fix the code. And they allowed me to use Google, which I was kind of, I was okay with that. Until I forgot what the difference was between private and internal access modifiers in C#. And then you were faced with the predicament of, do I look this up and look like an idiot, or do I just sit here and like beat around the bush? Because I know that's the problem. Like I know that's what I got to fix. But if I type in the wrong thing, they're all going to see it and think I'm an idiot. I say all that to say the solution is just to type it in. I sat there for like 15 minutes and wasted time solving smaller problems instead of starting to work on that big problem, taking that first step. And basically one of the engineers, he was just like, why don't you just look it up? Why don't you look it up? And it just kind of was a moment for me where I was like, you know what, these people, they get it. Like we're not all superhuman like Austin Freeman. Like we don't know everything. So we just look things up, right? So after looking it up, I got through it, knocked it out. There was some stuff, they had some, I think there was one, it was even like something as dumb as a semicolon missing. Like they really, the bar was not insanely high. There was no like coding, whiteboard kind of stuff. I didn't have to know, the time complexity of a search algorithm or anything like that. But then again, that just varies from job to job, and the job that I'm going to be doing doesn't involve any of that stuff. So after we got done with that interview, I left the room for the team to discuss whether to take me on or not. I went and had an interview with my boss's boss, which is the automation manager. He basically just reviewed my resume. He did some more generic get to know you questions, basically the same ones. So just recycle, reuse your old stories. Like it's a new person, they don't know the difference. Take advantage of that. Then we had an HR aptitude assessment test. These things are dumb. You don't need to study for them. You don't need to prepare for them. They don't mean anything. It's just HR junk that you got to do. All right, so we're getting that done. Just don't put anything like really sus on there. Like don't say you have like suicidal tendencies or like you dream about killing people. Don't do that on your assessment test. But just keep it vanilla. All right, and then lastly we go to the interview with the plant GM and the hot mill manager. So this was the final interview of the day. It was also, I would say this was the hardest one. The technical was difficult just from the standpoint you got that pressure being in the room with a bunch of industry professionals. But when you're actually with the general manager of the entire plant, he takes time out of his day to come interview you. That was kind of freaky. But what's important to note is neither one of them cared about the technical. So like the hot mill manager, he was like my boss's boss's boss, if that makes sense. He was like 3 levels up, and then the general manager was 4 levels up. And you're like, why in the world are they talking to you? Like you're an automation engineer, you're like ground floor. Well, there's only like 10 of us on the plant. So they kind of make it a point to vet us personally when we're coming in. But they did not care about the technical at all. They, each had copies of my resume. I did not get a copy of my resume. so I couldn't reference my resume if they asked me something. I had to know my resume. That was a big thing for them. They intentionally did that. So I said that, saying, know your resume. They asked about some projects briefly. They asked about some work experience. They wanted to kind of see what I knew from memory based on that regards. But they were also they wanted to know about my future aspirations. All right, this is really important. A lot of kids come out of college thinking they can go and get a job, and 2-3 years time, they're getting big promotions in a corner office. It just doesn't work like that. Now, tech is a little bit of a faster industry. If you decide to job hop, you can climb a lot quicker. But you also have to, constantly, you have to move around. You have to be on that job hunt. You have to stay up to date with the most current technologies. There's a lot of other downsides of that people don't really think about. But if you're going to invest in a company, which is my plan, they want to know kind of where you want to go in the future. And you need to be realistic with them. Coming in at the ground floor, you want to basically put out that you have a desire to learn and a desire to grow. You're not there trying to be the next boss. You're not there trying to be the next dude who makes $1 million. No, you just want to get in at a good company, build a strong foundation, blah, 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 blah. You need to make it sound like you're going to stick around forever, even if you're not. Now, in my case, I fully plan to, go with this company longer than some probably would. But regardless, you want them to think that you're 100% sold on board. One of the most interesting things about the entire interview was I was sitting there with the GM, and this guy's a millionaire multiple times over running this plant. I'm just like a pea in this guy's eyes. But he's sitting there talking to me, and he asked me this question. He said, what do you think the job of an automation engineer is to do? Like, as an automation engineer, what is your job? And it was a weird question because, obviously he knows what the job is, right? And I thought about it for a second, and I kind of took it a different route. I said the job of an automation engineer is to harness the power of technology in order to make everybody else's jobs easier, right? So when the operator out on the floor has a problem with the computer, or he needs a new readout for one of the machines on the assembly line, it's my job to build that. It's my job to equip him to succeed in his job. And he just basically stared at me for 15 seconds straight, didn't say a word. I thought I'd screwed something up. I was like, that's not the right answer. Crap, I messed that one up. And then he looked to the hot mill manager, or supervisor, whatever that dude. He's like, I've never heard that answer before. He's like, I've interviewed a bunch of engineers, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, automation engineers. He's like, always, they say something about how they want to optimize the system, or they want to make our processes more efficient, or they want to save us X number of dollars on the bottom line, or they want to increase us in X percentage points in certain, efficiency gauges. He's like, never have I heard one of them just talk about making the lives of people easier. And I'm convinced that is what got me the job. There's a big focus here in school about, technical, be technical. And there's a place for being technical. You need to have technical prowess. You need to know your stuff. But at the same time, you've got to remember that people have been around a whole lot longer than computers have, and people are the ones who benefit from the computers. And it's our job as computer science people to bridge that gap, to translate the divide between computers and people. And we got to make their lives easier. These guys couldn't give one flip about my technical ability. They just wanted to know, how are you going to improve the system here at Nucor? And at Nucor, the company culture is very much one of family, right? They don't even call each other employees, it's teammates. So playing to that, you have to talk about, using technology to improve other people's lives. Now, this isn't going to fly everywhere. You go to Google, they want to hear about efficiency. You go to these other FANG companies, Amazon, Netflix, they want to hear about efficiency. But if you're going for more of those mid-sized level companies, smaller companies, you will benefit way more from talking about how you're going to help people over how you're going to improve processes. So, key takeaways in closing. Know your technical stuff, but prioritize communication. Computer science people, we have this trope of being really nerdy and brainy and stuck, in computers. We can't talk to people. We play video games and eat pizza in the dark. That is not what you want to come off as. All right, be personable. You don't have to be like Mr. or Miss Outgoing, but you have to have the ability to talk with other people. You have to have the ability to communicate. Aim to build life capital through internships, projects, and general life experiences. One thing I did this past summer, I actually took summer off. I was a camp counselor at a summer camp in the mountains for like, for 11 weeks, helping kids, counseling them through like abuse situations, all that kind of stuff. I had more questions asked about that than I did about, technical related stuff. Because people who don't care about the technical, that's what they're gravitating towards. And that also gives a chance for you to highlight, some things you're doing outside of the academic circle, outside of the academic sphere. And that will also help you get ahead if you have experiences like that. Focus on the people, not the product. We talked about that a minute ago. When you're interacting with people in the interview process, you want to be going back to being personable. All right, it's important that you know there's a deadline, there's a product, there's a bottom line, but you got to focus on the people. How can you improve their lives using technology? Take interest in the process and the culture. All right, so they had me going on a plant tour. I went to these huge, big old different mills, checking out the different processes. Getting interested, asking questions. You want to show that you're interested in the position when you get to that stage. Also, going out to lunch with the employees, interacting with other employees, teammates, whatever you want to call them. Be personable. Don't come off as cold. Don't come off as like really calculating and just kind of to yourself. No, these people are they're interviewing you to be their next, desk mate or whatever you want to call it. They want to see that you have what it takes to interact with them on a daily basis. Can they stand to look at your face every day? If they can't, then you're probably not going to get the job, and then you're going to have to go remote or something. But that's not the option for everybody. So yeah, take interest in the process and the company culture. Ask clarifying questions. When something's asked, answer and then ask another question. Once again, go back to that. You want to build that image for yourself that you have a desire to learn and grow. You're the recent college grad who really wants to hit the ground running, really wants to take over the world. You have a lot of ambition, a lot of drive. They love that junk. So play it up. Also, admit when you don't know something. Don't try to act like a know-it-all. No one likes a know-it-all. No one likes a smart aleck. So, be very humble in that regards. Don't lie to people. That's not going to get you anywhere. It's going to leave a bad taste in people's mouths. And one day you may get, convicted of tax fraud or something. You start lying regularly. No one cares about your college or your GPA. That stuff doesn't matter at all either. So, kids are fretting over that kind of stuff in school. You just need a piece of paper. Get the sheepskin, get out. College is not the end of your life. College is not even really the beginning of your life. It's just kind of somewhere in the middle. Get through it. Get what you need. Keep going. And then lastly, most importantly, being approachable and teachable is much more important than being intellectually smart. Those of you who know me know that I'm not the smartest man in the room. Never have been. Never will be. But I was still able to land a really good job. And that's because if you're approachable, if you show that you want to learn, if you show that you have a desire to put in that work, and you have the initiative to go forward and do things when other people just sit still, companies are going to enjoy that. They're going to appreciate that. And they're going to gravitate towards that when they're looking for employees. So just get up and do the thing, right? Don't just talk about it. Don't just plan it out. Actually go and do something about it. And I think you'll find over time, as you repeat that process, you're eventually going to find a company that says, okay, I like this guy. I'm going to go with this, and I'm going to give him an offer. So I say all that to say, I don't have an ending slide. That was my ending slide. So boom, mic drop, we're done. Any questions, comments, or concerns at this moment in time?
Do you have access to the slides?
Yes, I can put those in the Discord.